Hi, I'm Drew Hutchison. You're tuned to Local Bias. We come to you from the studios of Greenfield Community Television at 393 Main Street in Greenfield. And today, I am delighted, I tell you, delighted to have Faith on. Faith, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Hi, Drew.
And you have great news to share with us.
I do.
So what's the great news? What's going on?
Well, I'm offering a kickoff 30-day self-care practice challenge during the month of April to do a promotional for my upcoming books. One is scheduled June 6th to be released, and the second one, September 6th to be released.
And for people who don't know who you are, who are you? What are you doing? I mean, so you have books, but what are they about?
Yeah, so my name is Faith Burrington Jones, and I have a practice, a private psychotherapy practice, and I specialize in experiential type modalities, and I work with people with trauma and any kind of addiction, and a lot of reprogramming from childhood programming that is negative and not healthy.
Now, are you using like dialectical behavioral treatment?
Yeah,
or?
I use cognitive behavioral and dialectical behavioral therapies woven into how I work with people. I also try to attune to the person that I'm working with to see what they're looking for.
Because you've created your own program that is not necessarily following other school. This is like the Faith School of Psychotherapy, and for counselors who want to work with people that have substance abuse issues.
And trauma.
And trauma issues.
Yes.
Which actually, if you have trauma, the chances are you're going to have a substance abuse issue anyway, right?
It's pretty common, yes. Highly likely.
So how did you even get to this point? I mean, did you study for years and years?
Probably the whole of my life.
Right.
As I said in the previous interview, I spent most of my childhood having anxiety problems with my health, and just one thing led to another. I had a lot of people die that very close to me, family and friends, that really kind of sent me into a deeper kind of soul seeking to what is this life all about anyway, and how do we navigate this life when all of these challenges happen? So the self-confidence isn't so high if you're chronically sick with either physical or mental health challenges. So it's really hard to believe that you can survive this life.
So what was the turning point for you where you realized this is what I can do this, and I need to do this because I know I can help other people because of my own experiences? Was there a light bulb that went off, or a teacher that you met that woke you up? Your dad, I know, was very instrumental in your growth.
Yes. I think for me, even when I was a child, even at 7 years old, I always, wondered and wanted to be a servant for the good of humanity. And I don't know where that came from. It just was innate in me, as a child. So that was there. And then as I progressed through my life, I had, when I was 10 years old, I had a friend that was killed with a horse accident. She fell off the horse stepped on her. And I didn't know what death meant. I didn't understand that because they're so animated and they're so soulful and so present, and then all of a sudden they're gone.
Right.
So that was a confusion for me, and I was
we don't teach about death.
No, we're taught to avoid.
Right. It's not even discussed.
Right. You just, and that makes it even scarier.
Right.
But as I did lose people, at 18, I lost my boyfriend who got killed in a Jeep accident. 3 days after that, this co-worker of mine, he had a heart attack right in front of me and died. So there's these series of very traumatic events that just put me on this path of what are we doing? What is this life about? And then how can I help myself feel better about this? So I worked for hospice for a while, and everybody said in my family, you don't want to work for hospice because you're like already a mess with your anxiety. It's like you need to avoid anything to do with death.
But actually confronting it and coming to terms with it helped relieve your anxiety. It totally
helped me. Yes, it really helped me, because the first night that I was hired to be a volunteer coordinator, Dr. Moody was coming to Greenfield, to the hospital, to do a presentation on near-death experiences. And so I just, after I had lost my boyfriend and my friend, within 3 days of each other, I was hungry for just wanted to get as much information as I could of what happens when you die.
Right.
So that's how I built my spiritual practice, or this idea that I have is, I don't think you can make it in this life without some kind of relationship or awareness of the non-physical.
Right.
I just don't think you can, or if you don't, then I think people have a harder time.
But so what's interesting though is sometimes when we go through the hardest times in our lives, those become the gifts because we gain so much from it.
Yes, and it strengthens us, to me, from the inside out, because so much of our programming in this life is that we get strengthened from our connections are outside of us, back to us,
right.
Like mother, father, school, teacher, authority figures, and we're constantly looking to please them,
right,
or to be good enough for whatever they ask us to do,
or fill whatever role we think we're supposed to fill in regards to them. So a parental figure has a different role than the child figure or a sibling figure.
Exactly. So we're programmed to take in information from the outside back. And so for me, when you get cracked open, like I did, I was looking to find connection within me in a soulful way, so I could build inner strength, to build resilience.
Because you weren't happy. You wanted to...
I was lost.
Right.
And fearful.
But you yourself did the work.
Yeah.
Nobody else can do it for you.
Nope.
And part of what you're helping is you're empowering the people you work with to actually, they get to do the work.
Exactly.
And through that discipline of the daily bookending their lives, being grateful, counting their blessings, taking accountability for their actions, and not having shame attached to it. Well,
I'm glad you brought that up, because the daily practice, this first launch, this journaling exercise I'm offering, self-care practice, to whoever wants to sign up to join me, and we're filling this out, and to actually implement and apply in a daily practice how they can support themselves in the ways of the mind, in the ways of the body, and the ways of the spiritual connection, in the morning ritual and in an evening ritual, and then rest stops throughout the day to check in with yourself.
Right.
So,
and that's something you're offering for free right
now
as part of basically the promotion for these books that you have coming out.
Yes.
That I know you've been working on doggedly.
Yes.
I mean,
yeah. Well, it's also a joy to work on it, because it's my life work.
Right.
And so to me, it's a really important investment in, what has helped me, and then sharing what has helped me in my life with anybody that's interested in improving their life or building inner strength, and actually being able to control or become aware and an observer or witness of their mind and their thoughts.
How do you detach from yourself enough that you're not emotionally attached to whatever's going on?
Exactly. So the way I explain it, Drew, is that the emotional body is like your central nervous system is like an indicator light. So emotions are like red flashing lights. And a lot of people come in to see me, they go, I want to get rid of my anxiety and I want to get rid of my depression. And I said, why would you want to do that? Because the anxiety and the depression is a result or an indicator light. How you're feeling, your emotional system is trying to tell you something. It's like a call for love.
So it's a gift, just like pain is a gift. It tells you,
It
there's
tells
something
you,
wrong with this.
Exactly, or like the control panel on your car.
Right.
Why do you have those indicator lights? So I thought of that when I was thinking of an analogy to help people really understand that our emotional system is trying to help us. It's actually working really well if you're having a panic attack, maybe a little too well.
Right.
You know, so I help people self-regulate, to sedate and calm their vagus nerve and their central nervous system.
So you have particular exercises.
Skills, exercises, practices, and the base is mindfulness practice or presence practice.
And if someone wants to, because they're only going to hear so much in a half-hour interview.
Right.
So if they need to go to your website, where's your website?
Well, if you go to interfaiththerapy.com,
Okay.
and there's a sign up, a registration under events, under the tab events, and it's called Bookending Your Day, and you can register for free, and that will take you to choices of whether to just do an interactive PDF to fill out
For your own self. You
your
can
own
just do
self.
the work yourself.
Yep. Or I'm going to be coaching on Zoom every Monday night starting April 8th from 7 o'clock to 8 or 8:30,
Yes.
depending.
Right.
And every Monday night through that 30-day challenge period, I'm going to be coaching people to encourage them to do Q&A, to maybe give them a little excerpts out of my book as to how they can follow through with how they fill out this book. Because, you know, everybody will say, it's easy to fill out a daily practice. It's just following through that's the hardest thing.
Right.
Right?
Right. So you're hoping that with 30 days, that's enough time to create a new habit.
Right. It takes 2 to 4 weeks to change the neural nets in the brain for a new habit to develop.
And then, but the best way to get rid of an old habit is actually to create a positive one that pushes it out of the way.
Right. Or I like to say, I don't like to say push.
Okay.
Because my whole message is with the emotional system, it's like our inner child, the one that has a temper tantrum, which it doesn't matter how old we are, we can still do that.
Yep.
So it's the one that reacts, or we have triggers or hooks when people say things that might hurt our feelings or whatever. And you know that that's your child. So that it's how to attend to your inner child without abusing the inner child, but actually meeting that part of you with understanding, forgiveness, and acceptance.
Right.
And so that relationship is not taught to us.
No, in fact, we generally have these negative feedback loops, it seems.
We
where
do.
You have a negative behavior, and then you feel shame about that negative
Right.
behavior. So then you turn to that negative behavior to make yourself feel better,
Right.
which in turn causes you to feel more shame.
Right. So in my work, that shame is an indicator light.
Right.
And it's a call for love. So you attend to that shame instead of saying it shouldn't be happening or I shouldn't be feeling this way. You be with that feeling, whether it's anger, shame, guilt, resentment, betrayal, any of the feelings, and you be with it. What does that mean? Right. It means to be present with it without judging it,
Right.
and or labeling it.
Right.
Or saying that means I am bad because I have this feeling. It's simply to be with the feeling and breathe with it, and then do these exercises. I teach people emotional freedom technique, I teach them a havening exercise that actually helps self-regulate. I actually want to help promote bringing this into school systems to help children self-regulate. And it's already happening, but that's what I'm going to try. I'm trying to create more of a initiative, you could say, to teach self-regulation, whether it's with yourself or then, hopefully that if you learned it or other mothers and fathers learn this, they can teach this to their children.
I remember sucking my thumb.
Yeah.
That's a self-soothing.
It is. There's all kinds of self-soothing we do. We eat to self-soothe.
Right.
We drink alcohol to self-soothe.
Yep.
We watch social media habitually to self-soothe, to distract. So we don't have to feel. And so my practice with people is to get them to go to their feelings and take 3 deep breaths with the feeling and just be present with the feeling, and then it will shift. Instead of shaming it or reinforcing a shame that's already there.
Or if you're pushing back against it, you're actually giving it more energy.
Exactly.
So you need
it reinforces it. Exactly right. So I'm trying to reverse that. So instead of the programming is from the outside to us in childhood, and I'm trying to, with all of my exercises and role plays that I do, it's reprogramming from the inside, which is building a stance or an alignment within yourself, and then coming from there out, which is about sovereignty. It is self-empowerment, and it does help stabilize your emotional system.
And I know that you've worked with some people that have had the substance abuse issues, and they have deep-seated programming, and a lot of it is also cultural. We live in a culture where we're not taught all of this.
We're not.
We're not taught to just love ourselves unconditionally and to love others unconditionally and just be accepting and non-judgmental.
No.
That's nothing like the world.
No. In fact, they use a lot of religions and school systems and any place of authority where you're schooling children or parenting, use a shaming system to control or to make them minds, a disciplinary system. We need a disciplinary system to help contain a child, let's just say. But it's the way that you do it that is the difference, you know.
And typically we do it the way we were trained by our parents.
Right, and unconsciously.
So generation after generation will have the same dysfunction.
That's right. And I think in some regards, parents have gone extremely the opposite of this too much discipline to too little discipline.
Right. Because children need boundaries.
They do. It actually helps settle them down.
Right.
Just like a dog, if you're training a dog, you need to be the alpha male to energetically settle that dog down.
Right.
And you have to be that with a parent and not a friend to your child. So it settles them down.
Because they
to
know
have
everything's
boundaries.
okay. I don't have to work.
That's
I have an alpha that's taking care of all that.
Exactly. And it settles them down, and then they feel safe.
And then they're going to behave.
Naturally.
They're not threatened.
Just
they
naturally.
They don't have to act out to get attention.
Exactly.
Or.
That's right.
And so how long does it take before you typically see the effects of this type of training on your clients?
Well, I'm glad you said that because I know, you're so good. It depends on the willingness of the person to actually apply what they've learned. So everybody can fill out that 30-day, self-care.
But if they don't do the work.
Yeah, they know what to do. Usually people know what to eat, how to move their bodies, how to put themselves to bed. That's better for them.
Right.
Not to watch scary movies at night, or, all of these things that help us gain restful sleep at night. Everybody knows what works and doesn't work. And most of the time, there's that lack of follow-through. And I make up that it's true because of what you said. It's a programming in childhood, a habit, and we do what we watch our parents do.
Right.
And we pass on unhealthy and healthy,
Right.
but in this case,
Whatever
unhealthy.
it is, we think it's normal.
Yeah,
We don't,
it's normal.
A child, whatever environment they grow up in,
Yeah.
no matter what environment, they don't have any perspective. They think that's normal.
They do. And so we're trying to begin anew here. And I think you need an accountability partner or coaching when you're trying to build a different habit. You're trying to develop a different habit.
So you have to call the people out when you see they're not actually doing the work, but you have to do it in a way where they don't go scurrying for cover.
Right.
How do you balance that?
So I have the person who's asking, let's say I'm asking you to be my accountability partner.
Okay.
So I would think about what triggers me with coaching or being reminded,
Right.
and what it feels okay that I can tolerate. So it's how, with your tone and the way that you word it to me.
Right.
So one time I had a housemate, and she would say, I need you to hold me accountable every time I say I can't afford that, because that was her programming.
Right. And
so
if
she had
she's
lack.
saying it,
Right.
words have power.
Right. So it's lack, LACK, consciousness.
Right.
So when she would do it, I let's say her name is Anne. So when she would do it, I would say, Anne, I'm not sure I heard that right. What did you mean to say?
So you gave her the opportunity to
To
be self-correcting as opposed
Yes.
to you
Reframing.
Right, reframing.
Instead of saying, I caught you, which might not feel so good.
Right.
Because it's kind of shaming,
Right.
top down.
It's
know?
it's so hard because we all. So my dad, I looked at one of my papers when I was in high school, and he cut it to pieces. I never
See?
showed him another piece of work. Well,
Right.
for years, and now I occasionally write for him
Right.
for his newsletter. But I was so embarrassed at how poorly I'd written, and I didn't want him to see anymore.
Right.
I mean, how do you? And so that was a defensive mechanism.
Yes.
And yet he meant well.
Of course
and
he did.
He didn't use a bad tone or anything. But he's an editor, and he's
Right.
matter of fact. This is wrong. This is wrong. I mean, to him, he wasn't being harsh. But to me, as a kid, it's like, oh no, I failed my dad, and
That's right.
It was got such an awful feeling.
Right.
So,
and that can go deep inside, and what it does is it creates this deep inner belief of not good enough.
right.
And that's what that's pretty much a universal issue.
Because that's the secret. We secretly all think we're not good enough.
Exactly. And part of that isn't bad because it helps us improve.
Right.
Right? And we, in a competitive way, if somebody was getting a B or an A and we got a B, we would want to try to get an A.
Right.
That's not a bad thing as long as you don't carry, I'm less than that other person. Because nobody is less than
Right.
anybody, in my view.
Well, and I agree with you.
Yes.
But that's not how our culture.
Right.
Our culture is always about, well, they're wearing nicer clothes, they have a nicer car, they have a nicer house, they have a more status with their job. So who am I compared to that person?
Exactly.
And that's what we do. We constantly compare ourselves.
Constantly.
What a waste of energy.
Yeah, and we don't know. I call that practice self-inquiry when we say, is it really true that that person is better than I am? They just do that really well.
Right.
And I might use them to inspire me,
Right.
or I could use them to make me feel less. That's a choice.
It's
That's where
it's
the
an actual
choice is.
choice, but we don't know we have
we
that
don't
choice
know.
because so much of it is subconscious programming.
It's true.
So you're basically hoping that, or not hoping, what you are doing is pointing out when that happens, hey, maybe you want to rethink how you're approaching that. It's
Yeah,
like,
or
oh,
there's interventions you can use
Okay.
that I share with people. That's going to be in the book, and it's going to take you through your own personal journey in that book that's coming out June 6th. It's Skillful Recovery.
So you have 2 books coming out, and you have
Yes.
this work. Okay, what do you? This thing that you're doing right now that you're offering for free. What are you calling that?
It's a self-care daily practice 30-day challenge.
Okay, and that's bookending the day, basically.
Yes, it's a daily journal
Okay.
that the person fills out themselves every day. It goes 30 days.
And that helps introduce basically what the type of work you're doing, so that then when your books are published, which will be very soon, people may be interested in, oh, well, this is working for me, this makes sense, I want to know more.
Or, I don't understand why I know exactly what works for me. It's like their personal owner's manual or instruction manual they're going to be filling out. They already know. How come I don't follow through?
Oh, so they know, they have the information, but they're
Yes,
still doing the negative.
So I usually give them at the end of the program, the last module, putting it all together, I come up with a daily practice that I offer to them to fill out. I'm taking that piece of the work, the end product of the program, and gifting that as a free promotional upfront. Because I know that they'll have trouble following through because of these deep-seated internal negative core beliefs or these unhealthy behavioral patterns that actually keep them from remembering and practicing what works best for them, mind, body, and spirit.
Well, it just seems there's so many ways we self-sabotage.
It's just a byproduct of childhood programming, because it's a lie. Not good enough, you're not good enough, that is a lie. And so what I like to do is help people be liberated, if they're willing, from that lie or that internalized negative core belief, to be liberated or to liberate themselves from it with daily practice, mind, body, spirit.
So you've worked on years to get to this point.
Oh yeah, like 15, 20, a lifetime of myself. So I've gone through this, and I continue, by the way, to practice it. So it's not just, I'm done now. I can always come up with new things I can do in the morning and before I go to bed, learn new spiritual practices, learn more exercises, techniques myself. So I'm constantly learning and then bringing that new material into my practice.
And it's interesting too, so there's the spiritual aspect, but the mind-body is a big part of it. How we move our bodies, how we hold ourselves.
What we eat.
And
how we think.
Well, and how you think, we don't even know that our thinks are we don't even know that the way we think is habitual. We think the same thoughts over and over again.
Without even so that's why I do the practice of self-inquiry. When we become aware, so you do mindfulness practice, you become more aware of what that narrative is. So like you said earlier, you step back from it. Because you're watching it now. And you go, oh, now I can do an intervention. Or I could say, is that true? That thing I'm saying to myself, that I'm not as good as they are? I'm different than they are, yes.
So if you can actually ask it rationally of yourself, then you can answer it rationally. But if you're coming from a place of emotion or denial, and most of the time it's denial.
It's denial or just sheer survival reaction to,
so it's just in the moment.
Survival. I just have to survive this. People are not used to interventions, and I teach and share and practice role playing and interventions. I'm an experiential therapist, and to me, the body keeps the score. The body holds the memory, the trauma memories in the amygdala and the limbic system of the brain. And it's wired right into the body. So you can't do this work, in my mind, that's going to really change this memory or these reactive patterns unless you are involved in some kind of self-inquiry and experiential mind, body, spirit process. And it is a process. There isn't an end to this.
You continual working.
It's practice and process because
that's life, right?
We live in a dualistic reality.
Nothing stays the same.
Yeah.
So you can't expect the things to stay the same.
No. In fact, it's about radical acceptance that there's both and in this world. There's both love and joy and peace and pleasure, and there's pain and suffering and loss and betrayal.
And there's also the time that we've come to the end of this program.
Okay.
It flies by,
It
Faye.
does.
It's so good to see you, and I'm so proud of you for finishing the books. the books.
Yes.
Because I've known you for a while, and it seems like every time I talk to you, I wrote another chapter.
Yes.
I'm astounded at your work ethic, your daily practice.
Yes.
And I hope you have great success with it. Thank you for coming on the show.
Thanks, Drew.
I'm Drew Hutchison. You've been tuned to Local Bias. Thank you for joining us. I'll put the information for how you can find out more about faith in the closing credits. Thanks for joining us. Take care.